Making headlines tonight, the Prime Minister makes strong representation before US Congressional Committee on the issue of blacklisting and its effects. An emergency room physician issues a warning about the consumption of some beverages to beat the heat. COVID-19 claims yet another life as 46 new cases are detected. And in sports, neither Narine nor Russell make the cut for the Windies World Cup squad.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you with this edition of CBC NewsNight. I'm Ryan Broom in our top story. And in an historic and assertive presentation today, Prime Minister Mia Motley appeared before a US Congressional Committee in defense of her country and the wider Caribbean's right to be free from unfair blacklistings and the resulting challenges. Her appearance as a witness before the committee, which is led by U.S. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, was a follow-up to a meeting between CARICOM and some representatives of the Financial Services Committee held here in Barbados back in April. Our Lisa Broom has those details.
In a forceful statement to the U.S. House Congressional Finance Committee, Prime Minister Mia Motley said the punishment being meted out to Barbados and the region is unfair and misplaced. She was referring to Caribbean countries being placed on various grey and black lists, leading to international banks pulling out of these territories, or what is known as de-risking.
Every citizen of the world ought to have the right to be able to have a bank account if they are to walk the streets without fear of crime, if they are to have the opportunity to save, if they are to have the opportunity to do as the capitalist system tells us we should do, to leverage our savings to be able to invest in order to grow our economy and to increase our wealth. And every country in the world ought to be able to have access to affordable banking services to fuel trade and to foster and enable remittances.
Speaking on the topic, when banks leave, the impact of de-risking on the Caribbean and strategies for ensuring financial access, she said financial institutions in the Caribbean are not the sources for what the U.S. is worried about: money laundering and financing terrorism.
Russia didn't choose the Caribbean to hide its money. Russians didn't choose the Caribbean to hide its money. They chose the metropoles. They chose London and New York and Switzerland and Luxembourg. And you only have to do as Tom Cruise told us in that famous movie, follow the money. Follow the money. Where has the money gone? It hasn't come to the Caribbean. And what we have is listings from the Financial Action Task Force that are perhaps well-intentioned, but are focused on process and form and are not focused on substantive prosecution of money laundering. That is the equivalent of saying that I'm more interested in whether you adhere to rules than in finding where the money launderers are.
Ms. Motley, who was accompanied by Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, explained what she and the Caribbean hope to gain from appearing before the committee.
We feel that if you can pass legislation that, one, includes a right for us to respond, and two, we live in a world of real time. So that if we have improvements, then they ought to be taken in real time rather than waiting for the next year's report in order to take account of the improvements that have been made by countries. Why? Because in that course of the year, that country can lose 5% of its economic activity, 7%, 2%, all as a result of its failure to be able to attract investment.
The Prime Minister also highlighted the millions spent by the region in trying to comply with the regulations set down by financial regulators, only to have a new set of rules applied. And in response to ranking member of the committee, Patrick McHenry, Ms. Motley pointed to things like the new digital identification card, as well as source of funds declarations required by banks and other financial institutions as ways that have been used to safeguard the system. Lisa Broom, CBC News.
Well, meanwhile, Chair of the U.S. Financial Services Committee, Maxine Waters, said the Prime Minister's testimony was not only historic but timely as well. Ms. Waters told the hearing she has been advocating against the injustices caused by the policy of de-risking both in and outside of the United States over the last 10 years, noting the U.S. and the Caribbean have shared interest in having the issue resolved.
For too long, the lack of financial access faced by Caribbean nations and their majority black populations has been blatantly ignored. As chairwoman of the committee, and even long before I assumed the chair, I've worked with stakeholders to combat the de-risking we've seen harm businesses and families across the Caribbean and the United States for more than 10 years. Financial access is key to a nation's stability, but for our neighbor island nations, whose economies rely on cross-border transactions, they're being denied this path to prosperity and resiliency.
In other news now, consumers will pay less for gasoline and kerosene and more for diesel, effective midnight tonight. The retail price of gasoline will be $4.26 per liter, a decrease of 13 cents, while kerosene will cost $2.16 per liter, a savings of 20 cents. Diesel will now sell for $3.94 per liter, which is an increase of 9 cents. Now, given the high volatility associated with refined petroleum products, government capped the retail prices of gasoline and diesel at $4.48 per liter and $4.03 per liter, respectively. The capping is expected to bring some level of predictability to the retail prices and shield consumers from the full increase of refined petroleum products. When calculated, the retail prices fell below the cap of the gasoline and diesel. The start of the new school term next week will bring with it a limited relaxation of the school uniform policy. That's the word from the Minister of Education, Kay McConney. It is being largely driven by problems being experienced by importers of fabric to make the uniforms.
I am told that several factors in the international supply chain have contributed to the delay in uniform fabrics reaching Barbados. Among them, the intermittent shutdown of several factories where the fabric is made overseas, the slow consolidation of shipments due to transportation challenges between multiple cities, and shipping connections that were held back when a main vessel bringing the shipments to Barbados was delayed, getting privileges to berth at one of the transit countries in the region where it had to stop before coming to Barbados. All of this is outside of the control of Barbados, of the Ministry of Education, of the schools, and of our uniform manufacturers, retailers, and dressmakers.
And faced with these difficulties, the Ministry of Education is offering an ease until the end of September with prospects of a review.
This means that if your child is unable to wear the full school uniform, new or reused, from the first day of school on September 19th, he or she will be allowed to dress in a manner appropriate for school in a plain colored t-shirt and a plain colored polo shirt and a jeans pants.
Some celebration news now. Commonwealth Games gold medalist and World Championship bronze medalist in the women's 400 meters, Barbadian Shade Williams, is back home after a long but successful season. She, along with Commonwealth Games bronze medalist in the men's 400 meters, Jonathan Jones, touched down at the Grantley Adams International Airport this afternoon on a flight from New York. The two track athletes were then joined by officials and triple medalist at the Pan American Elite Track Cycling Championships, Amber Joseph, on a celebratory motorcade that climaxed at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium. And of course, more details coming up on Sports Night. Well, coming up, the public health emergency officially extended by another 3 months. Welcome back. Well, Parliament has passed a resolution to extend the public health emergency in Barbados by another 3 months until December 21st. Speaking on the floor of the lower house, Health Minister Ian Gooding-Edgell said it follows advice from the Chief Medical Officer and other experts. He added that the move is critical so as to prevent erosion of the gains achieved, such as the decline in positivity rates and positive cases. In light of this, he warned some measures will remain.
One obviously has to do with the indoor mask wearing, which we have to maintain at this point in time until further notice. The other issue with respect to the visitation of healthcare facilities, both private and public, Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, we've had in the 70-plus-year-old group a number of elderly persons who have succumbed to obviously complications, and therefore we have to manage that because we have to care about the elderly in this society. We also have to manage the visitations to the healthcare institutions, Mr. Speaker, because oftentimes you have outbreaks in these institutions.
COVID-19 has claimed the life of a 65-year-old man. He succumbed to the viral illness yesterday. Now, his death has brought the number of casualties from the virus to 559. Minister of Health and Wellness Ian Gooding-Edgell has extended his condolences to the family and friends of the deceased. Well, meanwhile, 46 new COVID-19 cases were recorded from the 343 tests conducted yesterday. The cases comprise 7 people under the age of 18 and 39 who are 18 years and older. 38 people are in isolation facilities, while 356 are in home isolation. 102,025 COVID-19 cases have been recorded since February 2020. Under the National Vaccination Program for COVID-19, the total number of fully vaccinated people is 154,516. With elevated temperatures and the issue of a heat warning, a local medical official has warned those trying to beat the heat about consuming beverages that may not help the situation at all. These, according to emergency room physician Dr. Hilary Moore, include drinks high in sugar. She was a guest on CBC TV 8's Morning Report.
High sugary drinks actually dehydrate you more. Also, caffeine, yes. So you add coffees and those nice mochas and all those wonderful things. They might be cold, they might be feeling they might feel good for a short period of time, but they cause you to get dehydrated and actually can worsen your heat-related illnesses and symptoms. And as well as we want to definitely avoid the alcohol. You know, alcohol also dehydrates you more, and that puts you more at risk of severe dehydration and heat-related illnesses.
Hundreds of Barbadians benefited this morning from free health checks and assessments, compliments of the Ross University School of Medicine, the Barbados Red Cross, and Urgent Care Mobile. They teamed up to deliver various services at locations across the island under the Community Medicine and Global Health Initiative. One of the sites was Haynesville in St. James. Campus Dean at the Ross University School of Medicine, Rhonda McIntyre, says the program was launched this month to ensure students get to interact with the community.
Almost 400 of our students in semester 1 will be exposed to this experience. Each student will have at least 3 experiences. Today at this unit, at this experience we might have 8 students, but around the island today we have probably 50 or 60 students out in the community. So we're using multiple sites, so students have the opportunity to go to different areas, but also to give each of them the opportunity to have at least 3 experiences for the semester.
Time now for our first look at sports, and for that we head over to Mark Seal in the sports studio. Mark, some big news on the road outside today.
Yes, very good evening. Yes, a very proud moment as Barbadians braved the heat and came out in their numbers this afternoon to celebrate the achievements of 4 of this island's bright talents in the area of cycling and track and field. CBC's Damien Best reports.
Well, it was just after 1 p.m. that the JetBlue flight number 1561 carrying track athletes Jonathan Jones and Shade Williams touched down at the Grantley Adams International Airport from New York. As casual as ever, the 2 athletes emerged from the aircraft to a warm round of applause from Sports Minister Charles Griffith, Permanent Secretary Yolanda Howard, Director of Sports at the National Sports Council Neil Murrell, and President of the Barbados Olympic Association Sandra Osborne. Also on the tarmac was UK-based cyclist Amber Joseph, who arrived on island last week. Indeed, it was a reception they deserved. The highlights: Commonwealth gold in the women's 400 metres and a World Championship bronze medal for Williams. Shane Brathwaite, who was not on hand at the time, equally as impressive silver in the men's 110-metre hurdles at the Commonwealth Games, and a hard-earned bronze for Jonathan Jones in the men's 400 metres in Birmingham as well. Kudos to Joseph, the other female star who won gold at the Pan American Elite Track Cycling Championships in Peru in the scratch race, and silver medals in the Omnium and points race. Well, on to the planned motorcade, which moved off in style from Gaia, destined for the Worldly Gymnasium. The route was adjusted along the way, and organisers opted to travel the entire length of the South Coast.
Remember this afternoon, we're celebrating them.
making their way through the heart of Bridgetown. And once at the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium, the athletes thanked the BOA and government for their support over the years and any additional assistance to come.
The BOA have always been a huge part in my federation. There isn't anything that I could really ask more. They've always given me support in every way that they possibly can. And even when I haven't performed the way that I have wanted to, and I've had a bad result that I think is a bad result, they've always reassured me that, keep working hard.
Being a collegiate athlete, increased funding would be always appreciated. And also the implementation of some kind of mental health initiative or program to help athletes, because I know myself, I had, this year was my most successful year as an athlete, but it was also the most I dived into my mental health, seeing therapists, seeing sports psychologists before big competitions to help me to get over the nerves I would have and to be able to perform at my best. So not just for myself, but for the other athletes, the younger ones, and even the ones that might be next to me.
I agree with both what Jonathan and Amber said. The BOA is always a help in terms of funding over the past couple of years. But I'll have to write a list of demands and get back to you.
In his remarks, the sports minister said government is doing everything possible to further develop sports on the island, including pressing ahead for a new stadium in Waterford and other changes at the national level.
Grassroots sports is important. We speak about the national stadium, and I will go back there, but the Olympics, Commonwealth, World is not only about track. They're field events that we need to engage in, that we need to target in a similar way to how the Chinese would have done at Beijing. I think that we need to now be focused in terms of how we treat to our athletes and how we prepare. It cannot be a case where from Olympic to Olympic that we have a wish list. We must identify those disciplines and those athletes that I believe or we believe can hit podium and focus some attention in that particular direction.
Meanwhile, the BOA president said the results earned by the elite athletes is a sample of what can be achieved with quality investment.
Elite athletes require access to resources necessary to perform optimally. Developing an elite athlete requires a significant investment in high-performance training in an environment of excellence based on current sports science principles. All this translates into time, resources, and most importantly, good competition and training facilities.
So here's sending huge congratulations to Shadia Williams, Amber Joseph, Shane Brathwaite and Jonathan Jones on a job well done. Damien Best, CBC Sports.
Well done indeed. Thank you, Damien. Let's move now to cricket, where there's no room for Andrea Fletcher or Sports Narine in the Cricket West Indies squad, a 50-man squad that should be announced for the upcoming International Cricket Council's Men's T20 World Cup in Australia next month. Along with Narine and Andrea Russell, there's also no room for Fabian Allen. Rookie additions are leg spinner all-rounder Yannick Correa and batting all-rounder Raymond Reefer, while Evan Lewis is back for the first time since last year's World Cup. The full squad reads Nicholas Pooran captain, Rovman Powell his vice, Correa, Johnson Charles, Sheldon Cottrell, Shimron Hetmeyer, Jason Holder, Akil Hussain, Alzari Joseph, Brandon King, Evan Lewis, Kyle Mears, Obed McCoy, Reefer, and Odin Smith. Now, the West Indies campaign to win an unprecedented third ICC Men's T20 World Cup title starts on October 17th. Before the start of that World Cup, the West Indies will meet home team Australia in a two-match bilateral T20 international series on October 5th and 7th.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Topping business tonight, Barbados is seeking to establish joint agreements with its Caribbean neighbors. Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Comashong, said the initiative was started 2 years ago with Suriname and Guyana, and now it's heading north. He said talks have started with Jamaica and Belize, but admitted that there was the pandemic and the emphasis was on food security. But government has embarked on an outreach program with the North Caribbean.
From the Barbados side, we have already approved the text of the agreement. It is now with the Jamaica Solicitor General's office, and we are hoping that very shortly we are going to formalize that agreement. So we are looking to collaborate in many areas with Jamaica, and those areas will be outlined under the joint agreement for cooperation.
The CARICOM ambassador said Belize is Barbados' Caribbean bridge to Central America.
Belize is a very important CARICOM country. It is the only CARICOM country that is located in Central America. So it is our Caribbean bridge or gateway to Central America. It is a massive country, 8,867 square miles in area, some 53.5 times the size of Barbados.
And that's our news package. On behalf of the entire team, thanks for being with us over the past hour, and do have a good night.
Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.